Now we will see about the pandas. When you want to work with pandas, similarly we need to work with Jupyter notebooks. Jupyter notebooks can be done in different ways. First thing we did locally in IPython, then Jupyter notebook. There is and other popular ways are there like Google Colab, that also you have seen. And the next one is like Azure notebooks. Azure notebooks is another way where you can do whatever you're doing locally in this place. And Azure notebooks are now slowly moving towards the code spaces, GitHub code spaces. So GitHub, if you have an account, you can just open the GitHub code spaces, and every month you will get some 60 hours per month free. So what is advantage is means whatever you do local development, you can do that. But in local, we cannot get this huge, memory, RAMs. So whenever you have like a high computational works and so, you can make use of it. So even in machine learning also, they don't use local machines. They use this kind of spaces because when you're doing machine learning, you need to have a large amount of RAM for huge computations. So that's the reason they use it. So as a beginner, as a stepping stone, this would be an advantage for you to jump onto it. So this is also like a freemium version. So initial 60 hours will be free. After that, you need to pay. So there are some limitations here also. If there is a payable option also, you can go if needed. And the next one is co co-clock, co-calc, sorry. Co-calc means like this is also another site for doing same like what you do. Here also you can get a Linux machine. You can work on everything. So typically you can also work on a notebooks. So there are some ready-madely already created people's repos are there. You can access them and you can clone and modify them, or else you can create your own notebook. So all the purposes we can do. And the next one is like the data camp. Data camp is like famous for all data related activities. You can go for this website if you want to learn like Python or Power BI or SQL, spreadsheets, theory, or anything related to data engineering, data manipulation, data transformations, till machine learning and AI, you can learn everything here. So this is one place. These people also have like free courses at the same time, paid versions are also there. And there were some certification paths and others. Not everything is mandatory. You can start with what is free. Then slowly, if you are interested, you can go further. And the last one is like the Kaggle. So Kaggle is like the most common place where you find everyone. So whoever is interested, you can do here also. The advantage of Kaggle is that you can get everything here in one place. There were a lot of data sets here. I earlier showed you a couple of data sets, but in the world, there were a lot of data sets. Everyone comes here and they will place their data sets here. Say, if you want to work on, say, diabetes, I can specify diabetes. On diabetes, what are the different data sets are there? Everyone is pumping here. If you want to like, so whichever is hottest, it is saying like, see, someone persons or like clinical data, or like if you want to work on the healthcare or ML or like heart attacks possibility, like every data set you will have. As a data engineer, once you get a data set, we need to analyze that. So what all things it has? You see, some challenges will come here. They give data set and they say that, hey, give some conclusions from this data set. Means till now you know what is the problem, how to solve your thinking. Now you have a problem, you need to identify what is the problem and solve it. That is the point of data analysis all the way. So we use NumPy, Pandas, and like the visualizations to understand these problems, how to solve. We will do a couple of EDAs, like how to do the analysis and others. They are saying like for this information, what all the information they have. With that, you need to identify. So they made a preliminary identification in terms of gender demography, age demography. So CP, threshold, cholesterol, all these informations are there. Like basic things are there. You need to do analysis. So there are many people who have done that code. You can see the code section. So many people have submitted that. You can just walk through them. and you can see you can bookmark some of their solutions, or like you also can do your own things. So this is like a one place for all the data analysis in one place. That's why. So even if you are working on ML models also, there were a lot of machine learning models which are there if you want to use. Though it is out of scope to us, but just I am telling here. And now if I go for a new notebook, if I create, see, when I'm doing data analysis, it doesn't mean that every time I need to have ML models, right? For simple analysis, I can say my files itself, I can do some processing and I can do my work. So if I say like here, what is saying, hey, if you go here, you can analyze this Kaggle inputs. What are the files are there? It's a typical Python file, right? It is giving the default like, hey, NumPy is for numerical analysis and Pandas is for like data processing. So that's the two things we have. So typically, what are the statements you have? You can execute all of them. And the input files, what are you place will be here. Say like I have a couple of input files which I want to dump there. I will navigate to my directory and ask for that particular data sets where they were and try to execute them. I try to dump these particular files. Say like I have some files which I want to dump. These files I'm just dragging and dropping here. So means like the moment I drag drop, I'm not getting anything. So means like I need to upload it. Add to sheet. I'm asking like where is there an option to upload? See here, there is an upload option. So it is saying now drag and drop the files or go to the directory and get the things. So I will navigate to the directory where my data sets are there and I want to give it. So I have like different kinds of data sets which are there. I want to pull all of them. Data engineering, data sets, something I wrote, okay? So the moment I uploaded the data sets, so if you want to skip the duplicates, do you want it to be private? Like that you can specify. Say I want to skip the duplicates if there were any duplicates in the process and uploaded the 18 files. So this is how I upload my data sets to it. After uploading my data sets, you can see the input data sets here. So what are the files I have uploaded? So this is how, so every organizations may have their own environment to work with. So try to be familiarized. It will take a couple of moments, but just it's not that difficult. So, and they're saying, right, what? If you're having more than 20 GB also, we can work. So that's the beauty. Rather than working locally, it's advantage. First, instead of doing all this processing, what do they say? If you do os.walk in this directory, you can get all your files. So at the moment I started executing, did you see? Preparing these data engineering datasets I gave, right? You can see the list of files it should give. So it is running for the very first time. For the very first time when it is running, it will get the ecosystem entirely and slowly it will help us. So after getting it, if you start processing anything, so we can work on it. Say whatever we have done till now. The same way we can do here also in terms of loading the files, processing something, and all the information I can do here also. So I created some dev setup. In that I'm processing. So in this Kaggle environment, they are storing everything under the Kaggle/input. So whatever you give there, it will be there. Now I have all my files like this. Start working. So I am interested. Say I have a path like this Kaggle path. So every time when I'm referring, I should refer like this Kaggle path. So I can just like say here, this is my Kaggle path, right? I will take this as a path and I will store so that subsequently I can make use of it. If you know, there is one module called as pathlib. From pathlib, import path. From that, I create like a data set path. This is how you do in actual ML models. Path of what are the path you have? This Kaggle path is there, right? Of the datasets directory. You give that path. From next time onwards, you need not specify every time the entire path and do. So the datasets path is fixed. So we can reuse that thing there. Say I want to initially load from a CSV file. Okay. I want to load from a CSV file. There are like two ways in which you can load a CSV file. So first thing is like we have locally these files. So from that I need to get it. If I need to get a file from it locally, the path is like this one is the path. Okay. imdb movies.csv. This is my path. From this I want to get it. So how I can do? If I want to read, say df_csv is equal to pd.Read CSV. If I say I can read this content. Okay. Sir, okay, like this if I read df_csv dot head means whenever you read something, if you want to see, if I do head, I will get the first 5 columns. So 5 rows, sorry, for all the columns. And this is how it works. And so what is the purpose of I doing this much smartly? What is this data sets path? Means, see, during when you are giving this code to someone else, or in the process, sometimes the data sets order may change, place may change. So to better handle it only, I am doing a best practice. Instead of we actually doing the entirely, we can create a path of this thing entirely and use it. For that, we can use the same path parameter, and you can do like the data sets path, slash what are the file you have, you give it as it is, means it will create like a path. So don't you think like you are using like a path only? If you can observe carefully, so you created like a path only and you are using directly. So it is out of blue. So just telling you what you were doing. And again, I load, the same thing happens. So it's from now things are more easy, right? So tomorrow, if you send these files to someone else also, if the path is not correct, instead of checking everywhere in all the places wherever you are reading, instead of changing path everywhere, in one place in the source, wherever you are doing this data path, constant path, you can change it. That's it. So that's easy, right? So that is how we can read from a CSV file. Okay, this is one way of reading a CSV file. And the second way, if you have some, say, some data somewhere, as I told in the last class, if I have some file somewhere outside, say like this, if there is some path, there are some places where like if you have paths, the end result will be downloaded as a CSV. So in that kind of cases, we can use those kind of paths. Say this path is there. If I click on it, it will give a CSV as a download. In that case, that also same thing happens. So pandas has this concept very easy. Whether you give pandas.read CSV, you give a local file, or like you give a, so somewhere if there is a CSV file, like that also you can read. And the third way, you can read a CSV file in other ways too. Say that, I have uh, some content like this, some content like a CSV in a raw string I have. Means when someone has uploaded some CSV file or something, you get the result like that. What is saying? What is error here? Temporary failure in the name resolution something. Means it couldn't reach out to the site something. Locally for me it is working. Maybe some kind of gateway issues or something. I don't know what. But we can read it. This also. It's not a deal. And you see the third one. So this is the other way. There is one more thing called as IO module. From that, if I take string IO, with that, if I create some CSV. So don't you think it's like a CSV? These four are the columns, and these were like the values within it. So I have a CSV structure, but in a string. If you have like a string and if you want to read from that, So we can use the string IO feature from IO module string IO. In Python 2, it is called as a string IO module. Now it became like a IO module because for other operations also is used. Here we are specifying like indexally what is the index columns, use columns, and all this information. If I do like this, and if I ask, hey, print the df, it will print the data frame for me. So like this, it will read the data frame for me. So anything if I ask, it will do it. And in the same lines, if you want to read from a Excel file also same rules, it will work. So whenever you are working, so if I want to change it to a markdown block, I can just like mark down, that's it. So it's easy, right? And if I say like I want a code block, I can ask. So as I told you, if you want to work with the Excel files, you need to ensure to install some modules called as the XLRD. That is a default engine. So other engines are like OpenPyXL. So we can also give that information also when you are reading an Excel, such that it can read the Excel from the directory. Say if I want to read an Excel, see same paths I did. In this I have like so imdb movies.xlsx, and I told you the sheets will have like multiple sheets. The Excel file will have a multiple sheets. So if you are writing the sheet number, sheet name 0 means defaultly it will go to the 0th value and it will read that file. It read it. And in the same lines, if I want to get to a this file, I can tell that I want a markdown and I'm saying that I want to read it. So how do you read from a JSON file? The same thing. See here I did a read Excel, that's why I passed. In the same fashion, when you are reading from a JSON, pandas.read JSON. See what are module you have, you need to say read so and so. Read CSV, read JSON, read Excel, like that. Similarly, there were a lot of things. It's not joke. So things are like that. If I do dot head, it will give so maximum 5 rows. In this particular file, there were only 3 rows. But sir, you may think like JSON means it's not like a row and column, right? Why we got the values like this? If you can ask. So it would be like this. If I just open, so the beauty of this Kaggle is that you can see everything here itself. Did you see in the Kaggle down when I'm showing, you have a root tag. Under the root tag, you have the values, right? So movies, directories, and so and so. And each one is having 3 values. 3 titles are there. So 3 directors are there. 3 titles are there. As everything is flat enough, you've got like this. But sometimes the JSON will not be this much flat. It will be a structure of structure, a structure within a structure like that. In that case, we need to use something called as a normalization. That I will tell afterwards, JSON normalization, which is a complicated thing. But for now, you understood how to read a typical JSON file. Similarly, there are other kinds of things also, like you can read even from a files, I mean, like if I have a HTML file, I can say read HTML. If there is a imdb.html, from that I can read. If you can observe that there is a read HTML. In the HTML, I have all the content. If someone knows the front end, they will understand. If you have some tables in the HTML, it will be like this. Every table will have a row. So, and the headers, th, tr tags, and the t body. So under that, the th, td cells. So it is like a HTML format. From the format, if you want to read, so it can understand what is this td tags, these tags, and it will read the table. So that is how it can read from a HTML also. So similarly, after loading from this, you can also read from a Python dictionary. So that is another interesting thing. If I can quote on, I can read from a Python dictionary. So when I'm giving a dictionary, I can specify any dictionary. Say like I'm writing like this. You see, so one important thing is like all should be of same values. Means it doesn't matter like what data types you have. You can have different data types within the things also, unlike a NumPy array. But the sizes should be same. If the sizes are consistent, then it can do. Means like if I do like this, here ages should be there. But say like I did, so unfortunately 12, say 3.4, and I gave a boolean, say boolean, and I gave a none. So I give 3, right? Okay, 3 only I should give. I gave a none. So 3 values are there this time, but one of them I gave as none. Did you see what happened to this age? Yeah, none became like NN. So data types, if you have differently also, it's okay. But the size should be equal. That's what it expects. And also, if you want to load from a Python class instance, means we can do this also. Say like if you have a class, and from a class, if you are creating some instances, that also you cannot pass. I have a class has some attributes, some dictionary, like that some attributes I have. I implemented this function called as toDict. If I implement, so from this class, I am doing this dot toDict. So if you there will be some scenarios where you have a class, and if you want to do, you need to implement a function such that somehow it will come all the values like a dictionary. So then like it can, from there it will take the values. So like this also we can improve. And lastly, we can also get from some sites. I mean, like if the website is having a HTML content already within it, we can get from it. Seems like if that sometimes the changes happens. There is a website called as Coin Market. If I go to this Coin Market, it will give like the currency informations. If I go like coinmarket.com, you see it will give the currency informations, like what are the currency informations and others. So from that we can get it. So like that also we can read. But so it is need to go there and read that from the Coin Market. So if the changes were happened, like it cannot do, but generally it should do it. So not only that, apart from that, we can also read from different kinds of file systems like that. One more, yeah, so sometime like I think it's not going to outside world, I guess. Let's see. And also, not only that, you can also read from a tabular data. If there is a CSV file or like Excel file or table like data, if it is there somewhere, I found like one of the example is this one. So if I say like this chip part or something is there, read like a table. If there is a tabular data somewhere, we can read from it. Means like I'm giving all these options. Some of the things were like broken or like from this Kaggle, they are not going outside. I don't know that. But typically if they work, they should work like that. So this is how you read anything from it. If I go to this directory, I think like outside when I'm going, it's not allowing this Kaggle. But like leave it. But one thing I want to show here to you is that when you are loading the data, be aware. When you have large data to load, we can use the read CSV or whatever maybe. So you can change your engine. So by default engine, whatever you have is in the backend, it is using NumPy. So if you nowadays, like recently they came up with this PyArrow. It is like very good in terms of very fast. In fact, you can change this engine, and also you can do chunk by chunk processing. These were like some of the best practices when you are working with this one. So like that, I created one file. This is my Jupyter notebook I created. Now, if I want to make a name on it, I click on it and say 01. So loading data. Loading data. This is my data frame. And similarly, if I want to create one more data frame, just I go give a plus arrow. So then like I just create like whatever I want. So if I want to get the overview of the data or whatever, I can do there. I think hopefully now you are comfortable with this Kaggle environment, how things are working, right? Next, I will switch back to the other environment so that I want you to be familiar with all these environments so that you can play down the line on your own. So for the remaining, I mean, coming back to the ordinary environment and showing here itself. See what I did? I took the paths. I created a path. somewhere my files are there. I'm storing. Generally in the code, I don't place my data sets. I'll place my data sets far away, such that like data sets can be manipulated separately and data can be manipulated separately. So that's why wherever your data is there, you give the path, the data sets path, so that I can reuse in a paths, right? So as a user, I'm least bothered about where is my data set. If it changes in the first line itself, I'll change that's it. Now coming here, I told that we can load from different files. So one of the things we saw is like reading from a CSV. We read from a CSV. Show up the number of rows and columns. Means like if you want to get the shape, if you ask, it will say how many rows and how many columns. Every time zeroth value will be the rows and columns. And if you ask especially dot columns, it will give the list of columns within it. So in this, there were only 3 columns: movie title, movie director, title year. So it is saying like this, and it is of type object, it is saying multiple values. So show some sort of some rows from start. You remember till now, if you have a data frame, if I do dot head, by default I will get 5 rows. If you want like specifically some number of rows, you can specify the number. If I say 3, I will get 3 rows. So if you don't specify any number, by default you will get 5. But if you specify any rows, you will get like that. Like head, there is something called as tail also, means to get the last values. You see, if I give tail, by numbers you are understanding, right? The last 3 values you are getting. So by default, if you don't specify, here also last 5 you will get. But if you specify, you will get the corresponding number. And also, if you want to get the information about this data frame, I can say .info. .info means it will give the ranges of the entries, the data columns, each of the column, and in each column how many values are there, what are the unique values, all of the value, non-null values, how many are there, that information it is giving. Similarly, if I give describe will give the statistics. This is different. See, everyone does this mistake. Info will give you the attributes and how many non-null values are there, that counts, and each data type it will give. So title is like an object. So this is an object. Object means like you can think like a more than a string, like that you can think. So and the floating point values like that. Whereas describe will give the overall statistics. So next thing, if you want to select data in these data sets, you can just walk through it. So within these data sets, if you can navigate, you see. So loading the data, reading the CSV data and showing some data from it. Say I have a CSV file, I read again. So from this, if you want to do dot column name, if you want to access one column from a data frame, you can say like this. But the problem with this dot operator is that sometimes the column names which users are giving will have a space. In that case, you cannot access directly like this dot. In that case, we should operate like this with a braces. Single value or any number of values you can do. So generally, so indexing, so column if you want to access, like this you can access, or like this also you can access. Means like the same thing we can also access with the other way is like this. So you have a director name, you can specify like this, director name. That's the simplest way. Even if there are spaces also fine. And so this operator can be used for any of these things. If you have one value or any number of values, you can get like this. If I say like this, means I want 2 columns from it explicitly. And the most common entry question is like, what is the difference between LOC and ILOC? Means if you have some data frame, from that if you want to retrieve the values, how to do? So if you see here, the topmost, .LOC I'm saying locate. LOC means locate. So 0th place, so director name means, so a label 0 and column is director name. So within the director name thing, I want to get the 0th value. Did you see? Under the director name column, I want the 0th value. I got James Cameron. So that's what right I told. So I want the 0th value in this director name column. And that column, what is the 0th row? So that's what you got, James Cameron. Similarly, if I say dot LOC of 0 to 2 in these two columns, means one column or two columns you specify. How many rows you want, you specify. I am saying I want from 0 to 2, means it will go till last value, doesn't include last, right? So 0th row, first row, second row, you means 0th row, first row, you will get it. So second row, and in this you get the values of these two things. So like that you specify the. Similarly, if I say ILOC means, so indexed locations, locating them with the, so till now what you did, rows you gave with the numbers, but which column you want, you gave with a label, means column name you give. Means LOC means locating by the label itself, column name. Whereas ILOC means locating with the positions. Means till now for the rows you gave the positions, numbers, but for which columns you want, you wrote like with a name specifically. But in ILOC, you specify the numbers for the even the columns also. So column position also you should give. So like that. So whichever you go, it's up to you. I would prefer going for a LOC because it is more explicit. I can see which column it is coming. But it's up to you whether you want to go with ILOC or LOC. Next thing, indexing. As you know right now, indexing, if I ask, it will tell that. So sometimes if you see the index range is in a continuous version, that's why you're getting like this. So, and there is one more interesting thing. So when we have loaded these data sets, if you can understand, every row is having one kind of numbering, 0, 1, 2, 3, like that. That's why you're getting. So that's why it is doing the same thing. And totally it is saying you have values from 0 to 2450 something with a step of 1. Because everything is continuous. Sometimes in some files, indexing may not be contiguous. Then it will explicitly tell that. I have values from 1 to 10. Then after some 15 to 45, like that it has. And similarly, if it says columns, what all the columns it has, it is specifying. It has one unnamed 0 column is there, and other columns are like that. And similarly, shape means rows by columns. And same like that. In index, you understood. Index is basically for like identification, selection, and alignment. So mainly for like, if I say head, I got these values, right? And till now, what the index is, it is creating its own index. Means like the 0, 1, 2, 3 row index. But if you want to make one of the columns as index, so you can do this thing. Set index of movie title. And I'm saying in place equal to true. So not only this, from now, for all the attributes, this concept will be there. Where like, so in place equal to true means that instead of you assigning to some other data, means like if I don't place this in place equal to true, again the end result I need to assign to some other data frame, because what are the changes will not be in place. So in place means like whatever you changes you do, that will reflect on the same data frame itself. So like that. So sometimes if you want to make the changes to be in a separate file, then you don't place in place equal to true. So similarly, after doing this, if you go for a dot index, so index means you get all the indices. Earlier, you remember when you asked index, means you told the range index of 0 to 50 so and so. But the moment you changed the index column as to movies title, it came like that. But one problem with this is that whatever the column you have taken as an index, the values in it should be unique. Generally, movie name will not be same, right? So for a given directors, like that. So that's why I wrote it. But whenever you have duplicates, be sure about that. And now you see, if I ask director names, I'm getting. Director names also I'm getting. See, till now, anytime when I'm asking for any column, I will get the index like 0th value is something, first value is something like that. Any index column, right? If you see earlier also, when I asked for any index value, I'm getting like 0, 1, 2, 3. So index will come by default whether you ask or not. I'm asking only these two columns, but I get the index. Similarly, when you make one of the columns as an index, then also you will get everything. Did you see the moment I did like this? So if I ask like, hey, give me the director names, I didn't ask about the movie title, but as it is the index, every time it will come. So if I see here, dot sort index, I am sorting by the index. You know, this indexing is sorted and you got the results. You got everything. So that is how you make use of the index for anything. Next, similarly, then one more interesting thing about this work is about when you are loading from a JSON. This is more complicated. So when you have a JSON, say I have a simple flat JSON, I have three values. And if I want to use, there is one concept called as JSON normalize. So till now we know what JSON pandas dot read JSON. It will just read the JSON. Whereas there is something called a JSON normalize. Normalize means it will understand that what are the keys you give as the columns and the values as the rows. In this case, the values are just like only one values. That's why you got only one row. You understood the information. So all these things are good. Similarly, in this case, see here, I have like a dictionaries. Each one is having a key value, key value. So three keys are there, values are there, like a list of all these values. Now, if I normalize, it will understand that, okay, so these three are the keys and the values like that. So that is the beauty of JSON normalize. You give any complicated way, it will understand. You see, in the second case, I didn't give the room. So didn't give the number of students, right? But still it understands. And it didn't find for the second row. So it will mark as NaN, means not a number. So like that. So not a value. So it's like a null, you can think. So when data is like a dictionary, you see here, in this case, more complicated. I have three values directly, and these were like sub-values, sub-values. This is how a typical JSON will be there. Then it will straighten the content. Means like it will create all the keys. So school, these four are there, fine. You see like info.president, info.contacts.email.address. So like that it will flatten. Means info.president is John Kashish. Info.president is same thing, right? Similarly, info.contacts.email.admission. So info.telephone. Do you see here? Info.contact.telephone or email.admission. So like that it will normalize. But sir, sometimes you don't want all the levels. Then you can specify what levels you want. If you specify a level, you will get till that level only. If I'm saying like max level equal to 1, did you see from the current level? So it is going only one step ahead. President equal to John Kashish you got. But the contact information in that level, so you see here, till there only you got. So, but info.contacts means you got the entire JSON, right? Part of it means it took as it is. It didn't normalize further. So similarly, if you specify the level 2, level 3, like that, you can specify how many levels still you want. If you don't specify anything, it will do for all. And similarly, the data is a list of dictionaries. You see, I have a list of dictionaries. Now also it will understand smartly. Okay, these are the four keys, and it will understand within those values like this. So, and similarly, if you have a flattened JSON with a nested list, so like this, so so it will flatten all the content. And when you're flattening, see, you can say the record path. You see here, in this particular example, we are reading all the content and we are specifying what is the flattened path and others. So record path it is taking, you are specifying the record path equal to students. So the record path, if I specifically say that students only, it can consider all. In the first case, when you gave for entire JSON, it read for entire JSON or normalized everything. But if I say that in my records, I am interested only in a particular column. So then I can say records path of the students. Then you see in this case what I got. So only name Tom, name James, name so-and-so is there. So I got those things only. So like that, this normalize, we can modify it. Or so here also, I am specifying what all columns I want. Record path is students only, but meta information is like school. Within that school, I have like this one, subdirectory level like that, right? If I mention like that, it will normalize. So it takes the same students only, Apart from that, you are asking like school information and info email contacts, because like under this info, under contacts, there is a telephone number. I want that value. In this meta, apart from students, if you want some other informations, you can specify. For each of the column, you should specify a separate list. So why in this list 3 values are there? Under info, under contacts, you have telephone key. So that's why you got one value. Similarly, if you want another value, you need to add one more things like that. And similarly, if you see here, so JSON list, you got the entire content, JSON normalize. And similarly, the records, if you specify, all this information will come. So as I told, meta information. So if this time I mentioned like along with my students, I want class and room information. If you are there, so you get the class and room. You see, at the base level, you have like class and room information. That's why you get it. And apart from that, if you want something else, under info, under teachers, I have math. I got it. So, and similarly, sometimes errors also will occur during this process. You need to do the exception handling for that to understand for that. So instead of you handling it, if there is something exception, if I say errors equal to ignore, means which are the columns for which it is parsing, it got an error, it will just ignore them, and remaining it will give. So that is what it will work for. Okay. So similarly, when you are doing, so you can specify the separators, like what is your separators, and like you can specify the meta prefixes, and all these kinds of different things are there. Similarly, if you have a remote file, so I am using the remote file to get the data, and the result data I am passing to this JSON serialize. So like that also I can do, or else pd.read JSON I can give and the result I can pass. So like this I can get all the information. Similarly, if I have a dictionary, so some different weird things, I cannot do an ordinary p print to print it. So sometimes some things are not p print also cannot help. In that case also JSON can normalize, can help you to better visualize the content. So like that, there are multiple things are there. So I would stop here.